record just so we can get started and I can share this with people who were not able to make it for this because they might be shoveling or whatever else. So, all right, so welcome to the training. I don't know if you've had a chance to look, but these handouts are available. I've updated them and they are online. So I'm just going to go through this. It's a general overview of what to expect. Some of you have done this before and others have not. So, and then after I've gone through this, I will take any questions that you have. So just to start with, who are you working with? The warden oversees all the activities. They're the chief election official at the polling location. So any issues are directed to the warden. The clerk is documenting everything. So if there are inactive voters or errors that are made, the clerk needs to know so that they can be documented. The election assistant is someone who may be filling in on positions because we've had cancellations and we are understaffed, which may be fine for this election, but we just have to, see how it goes, and maybe we'll ask some people to move to a different polling location if it looks like there are a lot of voters going to one location and not so many to another. Hopefully everything will be fine. Usually it all works out, but just in case. Greeters, when we have them, help to manage the lines if there are any, and also to direct voters if there are two precincts in one polling location, like we have at Harvey Wheeler with precincts 2 and 3, and Hunt Gym now with precincts 4 and 5, help direct voters and also help them locate the correct precinct because we've had some precinct changes. The checker is either checking in voters or distributing ballots and placing the label that is printed from the electronic check-in into a label book. The ballot box attendant would be issuing I voted stickers and also alerting the warden to any issues that may come up at the ballot box, like ballots jamming or overvotes, things that need an override by the warden and also the police presence. COVID considerations are still in place. So we have shields. We do have face shields available, but we'll also have the plastic barriers at the desks, just so that there's a little more separation between the election worker and the voter. And gloves are a good idea to wear. And we'll have hand sanitizer available. The voting booths, actually, I'm not sure that they need to be sanitized. I think that we have the hand sanitizer available, and I don't think we'll have the staffing to do that. So the election day overview, morning shift begins at 6 a.m., afternoon shift begins at 1 p.m. You want to be prompt and report to the warden, sign in, and by the same token, after your shift is over, you want to sign out, help with the setup, and you'll be getting updates if there are any before your shift begins. At 7 a.m., the polls open, and that's when the voters will start coming in. You want to make sure, because people may bring in material with them to help them vote, you want to make sure that that information is removed from the booths between voters. So because it can become campaign material, because it's someone's opinion of how they want to vote. Food is delivered, coffee and munchkins, water, snacks, sandwiches for lunch, pizza and salad for dinner. So if there are things that you want to bring, feel free to do that. But this is basically what the town will offer. And the closers will arrive at 7:45. We don't have 2 closers for each precinct, which we try to aim for. So we'll need checkers to help with closing tasks as well. The polls themselves close at 8, but that just means that no more voters can come into line after 8 o'clock. And there are still potentially going to be absentee ballots that need to be processed. So that may all happen after 8, but the polls officially close at 8. And then poll closing tasks and tallying instructions, tallying tasks will follow. So who comes to the polls besides the voters? Observers can come in. They have to be 6 feet away from the polling area, which is 6 feet away from check-in, but you would need to say the voter's name and repeat it loud enough so that an observer could hear. So press is treated like an observer. Cell phones, we can't prohibit them, but we don't want them to disrupt the voting process. A voter may bring someone to help them with voting if they have trouble marking a ballot. Children are allowed into the polling location, but the voter should be the one who actually casts the ballot. Campaigning, which is what electioneering is not allowed within 150 feet of the entrance. So anyone coming in with a campaign pin or anything like that needs to remove it when they check in. And we have a police officer at the polls that helps to manage the electioneering and any other issues that can come up. But they usually are acting under the direction of the warden. So you would let the warden or clerk know if there's something happening at check-in. This is generally what the setup looks like. So we try to keep the voters entering and voters exiting from crossing over each other or past each other, so that we can keep a steady flow moving, and we'll have booths set up with enough distance so that people feel comfortable voting. It won't take long because the ballot has 1 office and 1 ballot question. Voters' Bill of Rights. When a voter comes to you, they should feel comfortable with the process of voting. They're entitled to a ballot if they believe that they are registered at your precinct, even if they don't appear on the voter list. So you want to call the warden over or the clerk over before you send a voter home. They may be in the wrong precinct, but there are a lot of resources that the wardens have to help voters. Voters may also choose to overvote a ballot. So if you've ever seen a ballot bounce back from the ballot box or the tabulator, if someone chooses, if it says vote for 1 and someone chooses 2, the screen will indicate that there is an overvote and give the voter the option to either put the ballot through as it is, in which case the overvote only will count as a blank, or they can get the ballot back, in which case they will ask for another ballot. And that's something that the warden will be able to help them with. It's important as election staff that you remain impartial. And that's pretty self-explanatory. But with ballot questions, people can come in and ask questions like, why isn't there a dollar amount on the ballot? Because there isn't one. And because they're in the voting process, you can't discuss anything, no content that's on the ballot. If a voter needs help marking a ballot, that's different. And in that case, 2 election workers will help the voter. One can read what's on the ballot and the other person can help and mark what the voter chooses. But it always has to be the voter's choice. And you can't, this is not the point where the voter is getting educated. We have, I believe there will be a warrant article that allows for an explanation of what a yes and a no vote would mean on the ballot, but we don't have that in place right now. So the ballot language is what it is. We sent out an information to voters that attempted to just show the difference between the warrant article and that there was a dollar amount there, and the ballot question that there is no dollar amount there, but we can't do anything at the polling location. You're kind of like a test proctor. You can give them another pencil, but you can't give them any recommendation or any explanation. The AutoMark is a wonderful tool. It is actually a printer that allows a person who cannot otherwise not read a paper ballot to be able to hear it, and also to mark it. And that is available at every polling location. I may have skipped one. No, I didn't. Okay. So a voter may not vote more than once, vote in the wrong precinct, deliver a family member's absentee ballot to the polls, or wear campaign apparel. Voting in the wrong precinct is something that could come up because we've had re-precincting happen. So we've tried to get the word out to people. The league has been very helpful with that, but there will still be people who don't remember receiving that information or have forgotten, and they go to the wrong precinct. So the wardens and the clerks know what to do about that. This is the ballot. Simple, shouldn't take long. There are 2 candidates for the position of school committee. There's also space for a write-in, and there's 1 question. At voter check-in, we have electronic poll books that we're using. We've used them for several elections now. So with this, you ask for the voter's name first, then the address. They'll give you that information, and then you want to repeat it out loud. That way, if there's an observer near, they will know who the voter is. And also it helps to make sure that you're marking the right voter. It's very easy when you have a lot of similar names in a row to mark the wrong one, and you don't want to do that. So after you've gone through the process of checking the voter in, a label will print out, and that the other checker will verify the voter's name on the label, and then hand the voter a ballot and put the label into a label book, which I will show you shortly. This is what the voter entry screen looks like. Under the search, as you start typing the last name, the voters' names pop up, all of the voters with those letters. So if you type only 1 letter, you'll get every voter whose last name begins with that letter. And then the list gets shorter as you type in more of the name. And then when you find the name and you repeat it to make sure that you're highlighting the right name, you click on it. And then you'll get a screen that looks something like this. Oops, sorry. So you can see in this instance, there's an arrow pointing to a red bar that indicates an absentee ballot was received from this voter. So there will be indicators if a voter is inactive, it will be gray. If you miss that there is a marking, it's actually not going to let you check the voter in without an override code. And that override code is something that only the checker, only the warden or the clerk will enter. And the reason for that is that the voter needs to provide some additional information before they can be checked in. So this allows the warden to check ID if necessary to make sure that someone is still living at the address they claim to live in. They have to fill out a roster, and then they'll put in or tell you what to enter in so that the voter can then be processed as a regular voter, get a ballot and vote. So this is what the label book looks like. It's literally a 12 squares that the labels are placed in, and this is our physical evidence of voter activity at the polls. Because we're using electronic poll books, we want to have something physical so that if something happens and the laptop dies or the labels stop printing or some flaw that we can't recover from happens, we can go to the backup paper voter list, which we'll have at every precinct. And that allows us to continue with the election. So this is what the paper backup of the voter list looks like. For those of you who have worked at the polls before, it will look familiar. There are red pens, and instead of clicking on the computer, you're checking boxes. Instead of having gray and red bars and highlights if a voter is inactive, or if you have an absentee voter who has shown up in person, there are different notations. The EVs are actually not in play for this local election, but the AVs are. We've issued over 500 absentee ballots to voters, so there will be a lot of them on the paper lists if you actually need to use the paper list. And then there are other notations that apply in specific situations. For instance, an absentee voter shows up in person, they would need to sign a certificate. What you need to know is that if there is an AV that shows up, you need to direct that voter to the warden or clerk, and they will do all the necessary paperwork, and then they'll bring the voter back to you, indicate what needs to be filled in to put the C for, that means there's a certificate on file instead of an absentee ballot on file. And then you go on from there. So this is just to show you so you have an idea. So these are, as I said in the previous slide, what the different notations mean. Challenged voter is something that rarely comes up, and it's something that the warden and clerk will handle. If you make an error, then that information would be written on a Post-it note, so that this is for the paper record, so that if the voter showed up later who is marked an error, they could actually vote. Otherwise, you can't let a voter vote twice. If there's a check mark next to the voter's name, or if you're doing the electronic check-in, if it shows that the voter already voted, then they can't get another ballot. The only thing they can do is vote provisionally if they insist on voting, but there's no way that we can tell that the voter didn't already vote. So it's really important to say the name and the address and really double check to make sure you're checking the correct voter when they're in front of you. So the ballot box attendant, people love those I voted stickers, and they may be disinfecting the ballot marking pens. This may be something, because again, we're not fully staffed for this election, that these tasks may be randomly assigned to people. You know, if there's a slow period, we have plenty of black felted pens. So, but we will need to have them sanitized. And also, it's important to remind voters to wait until the ballot goes into the ballot box before leaving. It scans, pauses, and then lets the ballot go through. And you can hear that. If the person puts the ballot in and leaves, they won't know if it's picked up an overvote and comes back for some reason, or if they've marked something on the timing marks at the edge of the ballot. If something is different about the ballot and it doesn't go through, it's a good idea to encourage the voter to stay and wait to make sure the ballot drops into the ballot box. And also to monitor for jams, or, well, like I said, overvotes, but jams can happen too. The election assistant may be assigned to be a checker if there isn't a checker there. Sanitizing voting booths, I don't know if we really need to do that. But you may be assisting voters to find their polling location, assisting voters with the voter assist terminal, and helping to process absentee ballots during the day. So poll closing, because we only have a few, we don't really have 2 closers per precinct, which is what we always aim for, because the tallying tasks, for instance, need to be done in pairs. So you may be working with a closer who comes in at 7:45 to help with tallying. All the ballots don't have to be tallied, but ballots that did not go through the machine and go into an upper compartment, they would need to be completely tallied. Sometimes there are a few of those, usually there aren't too many. Write-ins, all the ballots need to be checked to see if there are any write-in notations. Someone who did not see the ovals at all and may circled the names or used arrows. Those are all indicators of voter intent, but it's not something that the machine would have picked up on. And then also counting unused ballots, they're in batches of 50. So that's usually it, you'll have one partial pack of 50 that needs to be individually counted. Otherwise it's the batches. So all of this gets recorded by the precinct clerk, and also packing things up. So packing things up, it's important that things are packed away neatly. The ballot transfer case has just the voted and counted ballots, hand count and write-in ballots inside their envelopes. Unvoted, rejected, or spoiled ballots, absentee ballot envelopes, they go into a different ballot transfer case. That's all election evidence, so it has to be locked. The label books and the thumb drive that is connected to the electronic tabulator, those go into a backpack that's also locked because that's also election evidence. The supply case is not election evidence, but we like to reuse supplies, including signs, so being as neat as possible is really helpful. And a lot of this, if you haven't done it before, you'll probably be partnered with someone who's done it before, and you learn as you go for a lot of it. So I'm going to stop sharing and ask if you have any questions. Yes, Bev.
I don't know where I'm supposed to go. It has election date 1/3/22, location 1/3/22 on my paper.
Oh, sorry about that. I will find out and I will let you know.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Dean.
Yeah, just a suggestion. The other day at town meeting, a couple of people named McIntosh came in, and they, one person I could find on the computer, the other person I couldn't. They were both registered to vote. The issue was the computer is very literal in the search. So one person was MCI when you type those three letters. The other person was MC space I. So if you're looking for, if you have a name such as that, that might have an obvious way of being misspelled or misentered, the computer is very literal on its search. So just be aware of that. I found the person with MC space and I.
That is really good to know. And thank you for finding that person. That's, yeah. And that would be something that I think in a scenario where it couldn't be found, that person, the voter would be referred to the warden, who would look at the townwide voter list, which is a paper list, and see that they're there, and then look at what the difference is, or they might contact us and then we would look for them, because we can look by address.
Yeah.
And
in this case, another checker saw what was going on, said, oh yeah, here's what happens. So yeah, I would have gone to the warden had this other checker not helped me. Yeah.
Okay, well, I'm going to check on Macintosh's and.
Well, that was, I changed the name.
Oh, you did? Okay.
Well, no, I'm for this example that I just said, I used not the real name.
I've been on the receiving end of that though, with the space in my name. It's come into play.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, that's a really good point. Yeah. Anyone else?
Oh, sorry. It's because we're both on. I guess I want to.
Oh, you have an echo.
I do. I'll put my question in the chat.
Okay,
If there is a chat, where is it?
there should be a chat.
No, there's no chat enabled.
Okay,
Oh,
okay.
But if
sorry.
the
I'm
other
one of those
person in the
people
room,
with sometimes periods, sometimes space, sometimes without it. Is it possible to have the list with by address? Because that's how I've been found previous times when I didn't remember how I recorded myself in the town.
I'm sure that there is.
Because I
and
know
have-
my address and I can always find myself there.
Yeah. Okay, I will find out.
Oh, sorry. Why can't I hear her now? Can you do yours? I can't hear her.
I will find out if we can search by address. Has anyone had the experience of searching by address? I
Yes,
see
Kari, I
Carlin nodded.
did on a regular
Okay.
basis. It's under the advanced search feature. You can do it by address. That's it.
Okay. All right, so what I'm going to do is get a few screenshots for searching voters, and I will have that at the table where the computer is, so that it's very clear to see what the two options are. So if you can't find a voter with a last name, then you can do the advanced search. Does that make sense to everyone? Okay, great. Any other questions? Now we have, a few changes, of course, with the re-precincting. People have moved around, and also with polling places. Precinct 1 is at 141 Kais Road, 2 and 3 are at the Harvey Willow Community Center, and 4 and 5 are at the Hunt Gym. 4 is on the second floor in the actual gym, and 5 is on the first floor. So that is a difference. We're putting signs up next week. We sent a townwide notice out early in January to let people know, but there will still be some confusion. So, we're going to do our best to try to get voters informed before they actually come into the polling place. But, once inside, we will have the listing of streets and precincts, and also the precinct map that shows where people are voting. Any other questions? Well then, I thank you all and hope you enjoy the snow as much as you can.
Sorry.